This lesson is about participle adjectives, which are adjectives that end in the letters ed or ing, such as bored and boring. Participle adjectives look like verbs because they end in ed and ing. So they look like past tense verbs or continuous verbs. However, these words are adjectives that describe nouns, and we know that by looking at their position in the sentence. So in this sentence, the bored student was reading a boring book. We can see that bored comes before the noun student because it's describing the student, and boring comes before the noun book because it's describing the book. And then was reading, that is our verb. We know that because the subject student is the one doing that action. So we can tell by the word's position in the sentence whether or not it's an adjective or a verb. But what is not so easy to figure out is which adjective to use. Whether we should use the ed adjective or the ing adjective is the more challenging question. So one way that you can figure it out is you can ask yourself, am I describing the way a person feels, or am I describing the cause of their feeling? So an ed adjective describes the way a person feels, and an ing adjective describes the cause of the feeling. Here's an example. Her family are excited about her exciting news. So the family feel excited, and the news was the cause of the feeling. Here's another example. I think this one is quite funny, actually. Her boyfriend went back to his home country because he was really boring. So this is not the correct participle adjective to use here. It sounds like the boyfriend was a boring person. It sounds like the girlfriend sent her boyfriend away because he was the cause of her bored feelings. But what she really meant was her boyfriend went back to his home country because he was really bored. The boyfriend felt bored, and her boyfriend thought Canada was really boring. Canada was the cause of the bored feeling. It wasn't the boyfriend causing the boring feeling. So remember, the ed adjective describes the way a person feels, and the ing adjective describes the cause of the feeling. So let's see if you can apply what you've learned here. I couldn't sleep last night because the mosquitoes were so annoyed or annoying. So ask yourself, do mosquitoes have feelings? No, they're the cause of annoyed feelings, right? So the mosquitoes were so annoying. We're describing the mosquitoes. So who felt annoyed? I felt annoyed. And it was those mosquitoes who caused the feeling. So the one who feels the feeling gets the ed adjective, and the one causing the feeling gets the ing. She will be really excited or exciting to open your gift. So are we talking about the way somebody feels, or are we talking about the cause of a feeling? In this sentence, we're talking about the way she feels. She will feel really excited to open your gift. So what is exciting? What's causing this feeling? The gift. The gift is exciting. So the gift caused the feeling. The stories he told were so long and bored or boring that we almost fell asleep. So do stories have feelings? No, they don't, right? So the stories were boring. And who felt bored? We felt bored. All right, hopefully you're starting to get the hang of it now. That movie where everyone died was so depressed or depressing. So are we describing the movie or are we describing the person who watched it? So if I watched it, am I describing myself with this sentence or am I describing the movie? That movie where everyone died was so depressing. The movie was depressing. And who felt depressed? I felt depressed when I watched it. So it was a depressing movie. It caused me to feel depressed. My friend got lost because of my confused or confusing directions. So am I talking about the way somebody felt or am I talking about what caused the feeling? In this sentence, I'm talking about confusing directions, which caused who to feel confused. Who had the confused feeling? My friend. And what caused it was the confusing directions. Okay, so practice makes perfect. Here we have some more. We went on a long and what? Tiring bicycle ride, so we fell asleep quickly. And who or what felt tired? We felt tired. He was really embarrassed or embarrassing when his phone rang during the wedding vows. Embarrassed. He felt embarrassed. And what was embarrassing? The phone call was embarrassing. That caused the feeling. Most people think pasta is a satisfied or satisfying meal. Is it causing a feeling or is somebody feeling satisfied? Well, it's satisfying. And who feels satisfied? Most people when they eat a satisfying meal. My sister was surprised or surprising when her boyfriend asked her to marry him so soon after they met. Well, she felt surprised. So we need to use the ed adjective. And what was surprising? What caused this feeling? The proposal was surprising. And last one, I comforted my frightened nephew when the big dogs made him cry. So how did the nephew feel? He felt frightened. And what caused the feeling? The dogs were frightening. So another way to think of this is to think about whether or not the quality is a finished or a continuing quality. So not every situation has people with feelings. We also have situations where we're describing things without feelings. So here's an example. The mother took the boiled eggs out of the boiling water. So eggs do not have feelings. The eggs did not feel boiled. So how do we know which adjective to use? Well, if the action that caused the quality is finished, use ed. So the boiling eggs, that action of boiling them is done. So when eggs look like this, when they're hard like that, then the action of boiling them is no longer continuing, and so it's a finished quality. However, if the action that causes the quality is continuing, as in the boiling water, which is continuing to bubble and steam, then we need to use the ing adjective. We can also use this method with figuring out which adjective to use to describe people. So we can use the feeling method, but we can also use the finished or continuing quality method. So The interested audience listened carefully to the interesting speaker. The audience will not feel interested forever. It's not going to continue that feeling forever. After the speaker's talk, the feeling of interest will finish. However, the speaker won't stop being an interesting person after the talk. The interesting quality about them will continue after the talk. Being an interesting person will not end. So, here are some more examples of things that can either be described as having continuing or finished qualities. So if the quality is finished, use ed, as in polished nails. So the polishing is finished by the time you're looking at polished nails. Or if it's continuing, like a crackling fire, that is an example of an quality that continues for as long as the fire is burning. So you can pause and have a closer look at these examples if you want to. So let's see if you can apply what you've learned. How do you feel right now? Try to use some ed adjectives. I feel what right now? What adjective could you use to describe yourself? Do you feel amused, annoyed, bored, confused, frightened, enraged? So try to use the correct ed adjective to describe how you feel. And then when you're done with that, think about what are some qualities that people use to describe you. Try to use some ing adjectives. So remember, these are qualities that are continuing, that will not change. So do people say that you are an amazing person, an outgoing person, a surprising person, an interesting person? So if you can use these adjectives correctly in these situations, I think that will go a long way to helping you understand this concept. All right, so let's summarize what we've learned. Participle adjectives look like verbs because they end in ed and ing, but their job is to describe nouns. So here's an example. The excited audience clapped after they watched the exciting show. So those look like verbs, but we can see because they come before the noun that they are describing the noun and they are indeed adjectives. Participle adjectives that end in ed describe the way a person feels, or another way we can look at it is that they describe a quality that is finished. The excited new roommates ate pizza in their freshly painted new apartment. So excited describes the way the roommates feel, and then painted describes the apartment, and that's a quality that's finished. The action that created that quality is done. The painting is done. So that's why we're using ed there. Participle adjectives that end in ing describe the cause of a feeling, or another way to look at it, they describe a quality that continues. So here's an example. The bored students fell asleep during the boring lesson that their boring teacher was teaching them. So the boring lesson is the cause of the students feeling bored. And then the boring teacher, that's an example of how this is a continuing quality. This is not going to change, and so that's why we're using the ing there. So participle adjectives are an area where a lot of students make mistakes, but we need to use these participle adjectives often in daily life. So it's worth putting some effort into learning how to use them correctly.